What's going on, everyone? Chandler here with LFP TV. Today I've got something very special behind me, something that we don't usually see at a Ford dealership. In the spirit of doing more driving reviews that a lot of you keep asking for, we're going to start doing a performance kind of trade-in of the week where I'll highlight some of the more interesting, wacky, and special vehicles that we get in at the dealership. So this is a 2014 BMW M5. It makes about 560 horsepower, and it was a six-figures car when it was new. This particular one was traded in for another vehicle at the dealership and now has about 55,000 miles on it, but boy, has it aged nicely. There's hardly a flaw anywhere on this car. It's still amazingly special, and I wanted to do kind of a driving review on this. I have a CTS-V, which is basically the GM version of the M5, so I was really interested to get into it, compare it, see how different it is to what I have right now and to what Ford has on the market. Whoever gets this thing, man, it's going to be an absolutely awesome buy. Just driving it over here, I got to have a little bit of fun with it, and man, is it a rocket ship, and it has a whole lot of tech. Alrighty guys, let's go for a drive. I'm going to head over to my favorite road around here. A couple things that I immediately have noticed about this car is, A, the seats are absolutely awesome. They're extremely well bolstered. The fit and finish of the interior, you know, it was what you would expect of a six-figures car. It is absolutely top of the line. All the materials, the leather, everything, the build quality, the aluminums, it's all absolutely fantastic. And one of the things that I have noticed is there are an absolute ton of technological features. So this also has magnetic dampening. I'm working on actually kicking everything over into sport mode right now. I guess there's an engine mapping, the steering input, and the engine programming are all now mapped into Sport Plus. So I just have it in drive. It's quiet. It's pretty comfortable even in the sports setting, but you can immediately tell there's kind of something special about this car. Obviously, it's what's under the hood, with it being an M5, being a highly exclusive vehicle. Just the suede headliner, the infotainment system's fantastic. It took me a little while to figure out how to use the little knob on here, but it's actually really intuitive. It keeps you from getting your fingerprints on the screens, or excuse me, on the screen, which is really nice. Now, I will admit, when I got into this thing, I was completely overwhelmed with the amount of tech on this car. There's just so much. Truthfully, it took me several minutes to figure out how to get it into park when I pulled in to get my camera stuff. Make fun of me if you will, it's just that complicated. One of my favorite things about this car is there's actually a heads-up display, and what's really cool about the heads-up display is not only does it show your speed, but it actually broadcasts the speed limit, which is picked up on the GPS, up in your heads-up display, so you can see how fast you're going and how fast you're supposed to be going, even though it never really happens because this is a BMW M5, and the people who drive these, I would assume, are going to drive them spiritedly. It is a sports car hidden under a four-door sedan look. But right off the bat, man, I really like it. It feels like my CTS-V does, just a little bit more refined. It's that extra level of refinement, of completeness that the Germans are known for, and that the Americans are still kind of trying to catch up on. So overall, first impressions are really, really good. So I'm gonna head up here to the highway. We'll do a quick pull up to the speed limit on highway, and then we'll hit my favorite back road to really see how this thing behaves. The stats on the car are pretty impressive. 0 to 60, excuse me, 0 to 60 comes about in 3.7 seconds. As I mentioned earlier, 560 horsepower. I really wish I knew more about these cars. It's just always kind of been one of those vehicles that's been more or less unobtainable to me. It wouldn't have been my first choice in vehicles, so I never really paid much attention to them. But now that I get a chance to get in it, I really, really like it. So I'm going to do this real quick. Let's kick this into comfort. Maybe. Alright, comfort setting. Oh. That's a big difference. Oh, that's nice. So there's definitely a very noticeable difference between Comfort and Sport Plus on the magnetic dampening system. Now let's see what it's like with the paddle shifters. I'm expecting, since it's German, for it to be very responsive. So let's take a look. All right, second gear, 1, 2, 3, and go. Oh yes. Wow. Okay, this thing's pretty quick. So one of the cool things about the Germans is they are very, very proficient in the ability to dial in traction control. So what was kind of wild for me and kind of unusual is when I punched it in second gear, I really didn't get very much thrust. So what it's doing is the system is sensing, and I could see it working because the little traction control light would flash. It senses that there's wheel spin, so it dials back the power to keep you from crashing. And then it lets you have it all when it reaches when it realizes there's no more wheel speed. Sorry, I'm having a lot of fun. Fourth gear is really quite impressive. This thing puts a smile on your face. The steering is very, very direct, nicely weighted. Downshifts are immediate. This thing is a work of art. Oh boy. First impressions, wow. It's an extremely well thought out car. It seems to make it very difficult to hurt yourself, which I'm sure is why you see, you know, so few of these vehicles being crashed. Wow, but it will get sideways in a jiffy. Oh man, it's fast. Yeah, it's really fast. Oh, the transmission's wonderful. Wow. This thing is fun. And I like really, really loud exhaust, so this is kind of like different because it's really quiet, but it's interesting how the Germans do it. You don't hear so much of that back there, but you hear a lot more from the engine itself, which, you know, in some cars, you know, they use the artificial sound tubes and things like that I really hate. But this car sounds really, really nice. Now, I will say, I would still probably put an exhaust on it, but it's very, very impressive. Wow. Okay. So driving along here, I got interrupted by a bit of traffic, but the handling, the steering feel is really, really nice on it. And this is a comparison that I'll make to my CTS-V. There's a lot less body roll in this car, even though it's a you know, a 4-door, and it still weighs over 4,000 pounds, and it's a heavy car. It doesn't feel like it that much. I mean, it's, you know, it still feels like there's some weight there, but on my CTS-V, when you turn in, it's kind of one of those things where it wallows a bit, and you're like, oh my god, is it actually going to turn? And then it hooks and it turns, and everything's fine, and you live. This car is different in that it's immediate. There's no guess. You point the wheel in the direction that you want to go, the car goes there. Now there's a limit of grip. I found it pretty quickly on these tires, but it's still an extremely impressive car in the way that it makes you forget that it's over 4,000 pounds and has 4 doors. So now we're just chugging along in 6th at about 1,600 RPMs at about 58 miles an hour. And I see why people like these cars. It's such a comfortable driver. The visibility on it's really superb everywhere you look. You can see very well. So I apologize, I'm trying to look at the light and not get my eyes absolutely melted by the sun. In short, it takes what I love about my CTS-V and refines it a whole bunch. It's not as fast in a straight line, but it's just an incredibly refined and connected driving experience that this is definitely a car that's kind of now on my bucket list, actually. Sure, they're expensive, and they're a bit expensive to maintain, and, you know, when they break, it's not good. You know, you need a kind of a specialist or a special mechanic to work on it, but it's completely worth it. If you want the ultimate daily driver that is just as at home, going from stop and go traffic to ripping down a back road with some tight turns to, you know, drag racing on the weekends or racing your buddies on the highway, this car will do it all and put a smile on your face the entire time. So would I trade my CTS-V in for it? It's a tempting proposition. This car has really surprised me. It's kind of convinced me and made me understand a little bit more about what, you know, BMWs are about. This is my first M5. I drove an E46 M3 at one point, but this is the first, you know, four-door M car that I've driven, and I'm just thoroughly impressed about how well-rounded it is. That's the best way that I can describe it, is describe it as a complete package that puts a smile on my face no matter what I'm doing. For whoever the buyer of this car is, you're going to be extremely pleased, and you're a very lucky person. To see this car and to see others like it when we get them in, and other performance cars that we have, you guys can check us out on the web at www.lebanonford.com or call 513-696-1105 to schedule a test drive on this vehicle. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you bearing with me. These are longer reviews, but I do like to kind of cover everything that I can. Thanks so much, and we'll be back with more.